The second video help, we're going to navigate to the customer screen. Let's go there. The customer information screen has a primary purpose where it has each contact, which was a primary contact, listed on this side of the screen. And a primary contact can be one person, in this case, who is the primary contact for a company, and the information for that primary contact, and a secondary contact. If it were a person that needed to be contacted immediately, there would be a secondary contact with their supporting information. Each time you create a new company information here, you would include the company data over on this side of the screen, and also a relational or a related record for each individual that may be contacted within the company, to include the primary and secondary person in these records, because there's additional information that can be added in a portal record. What is a portal record? This is a scrolling area that can have an infinite number of records in it. So if you had a large company where you had a lot of contacts that were related to the primary or secondary contact, you would put each one of the related ones, including the primary and secondary, within this area. Then you can search on these for whatever information you need to in the portal. In a portal record, you cannot actually do a search on this record using the Do Action menu. Let's describe what a Do Action menu does. We had the navigation over here. Well, the Do Action is each individual action that you may want to take where you're doing a function within the screen. And in this case, it might be to add a record, to start a find. And in this particular record, you can't do a find in a portal, but any of the records, data fields up at the top of the screen up here, can be used in a find, and you can combine one to the number of fields that you need to in order to put in the information to create a find. What does a find do? A find goes out and selects a record based on the information you put in the field. So if I put in this name here, Vaughn, and I did a search, it would probably bring up one record. But if I put in the word Sedona and I had a company that had a lot of people in the Sedona area, what it would do when I performed the find is it would bring up every record that included that information. So what would happen is I would have 1 to the number of records that had that information within it. This is how you perform a find. It can either be done in any kind of screen that you're in. It can be done if you go to the individual portal record, then you can search on any record with all the portals for all the companies based within the application, within the database. So this is start a find, and let's show you how this works. I'm going to just tap on it. It rotates the screen and brings up the record with a magnifying glass by each record. Now, even though they're shown down here in the portal, you cannot do a record search. But what you can do is you can go ahead and add any information. In this case, I'm going to show you that you don't even have to put in the full name. I put the first 3 syllables of the name. Then I go up and I do a find. I say perform the find. It rotates the record, and you'll see that it showed an additional level in the selection of records. There were 11 additional records and 1 selected out of that. That's what that rotation does. If you want to see a little bit more of that, you can click here, click on this little target looking thing, and you'll say there were 11 omitted and 1 found. What that really is saying in this particular case is that the records that are totally selectable in the records order is 11, and I've got 1 of those 11 records in this thing, or a total of 12 records total. I'm on record 1 of 1. Now, if I had selected this and 4 of them came up, you could see that this would be reduced down by 4, and it would show 4 over here, and it's a 1 of 4. Now, if you have a field or something highlighted, as shown in an actual record, you could say show all again to bring all the records back, or you can omit the current record that you're viewing, or show the omitted record that you're currently viewing. That would show all the omitted records that were omitted, like 11, and it would, or omit 1 that you're viewing. I'll go back through that so I don't confuse you. If I did a find and I want to return all the records, click on show all. If I want to show the ones that were omitted, I would click here. And then if I wanted to omit the one I'm currently looking at, I could do that here. If I wanted to go through the records, I can also pop up the screen and do certain things. I can cut, copy, select all, paste, delete, define, share. And in the case of share, I could share records as far as similar to an export and send out information. Or I could paste in text only, or I can change the style, which allows me to bold, highlight, underline, and do those kind of things like italic and so forth. Now, I'm going to point out for the application, just so you're aware of this, you never use these two. This is plus to add a record and minus to delete a record. That is not acceptable in this application, because if you do that, this is a fully relational database, and if you delete a record that is in a child record where this is a parent, if you say, for example, you can delete a portal record, but if you deleted this entire record up here, it would kill all these records down here and make them as what we call orphan records. They don't have a parent, so now they're going to cause a problem in the application because they don't have a parent record. To make that perfectly clear, a orphan record is one that doesn't have a parent, and it's because the parent record was deleted either by accident or whatever. Well, if you don't ever click on these right here, you're not going to have that issue. It should not provide that kind of an issue. So what you would do is never use those plus and minuses. I allow for that within that do action menu where it says show first, show next, prior, last, omit, show omitted. You can print the records from here. You can export records from within this record. And when you export them, it's for the live records at the top, not the portal records. You actually have to be in the portal to export portal records. Then you have the developer support, which we discussed in the first video, where if you need help from developer support, you can click here. It'll take you to the developer screen where you can pick the chat or you can send an email to the support group to answer your questions. And then video help is where you find all the videos in a group that are for this entire application, where it'll give you the information about that particular screen or screens. Now let's go back and actually look at the information which is in this screen so we know what we're looking at. When you come in, this is called a select portal for the customer, and this is for the primary customer, or if you've relisted a secondary or related contact for whatever reason, like I explained in the first one. This might be the CEO or somebody who's important in the company, and then you might have a project manager down here, but you want to contact them as a primary. Say, for example, like you have contracts where that's an important person to have for a primary record, then you would list them here. You would put the same company information in here, but then they would have a different department, or they would be within a different administrative unit within the company, as far as down in this area. If they're listed as a job position, it might be project manager, and they would be in the operations group, for example. So that would be different, and they still could be a primary contact based on contract requirements. They could have an image of that person. If you tap on this area here, it's going to allow you to put a photo in from your photo library. You can actually import photos into your photo library, or you can drag and drop them from other applications within the iPad or iPhone and drop them in here, or pick them from something where you actually did a live shot of the person and then dropped them in here. And the purpose of having an image of the individual person is not just only for you if you knew them, but if somebody's seeing this person for the first time, it would give them the ability to see the person and recognize them as a primary contact. And then that way you would know who this person was at a meeting or whatever. And the same thing occurs if you go to the portal record for the individual related records. There's also going to be a photo for each one of these people if you have a place to take an image of that particular person. This can be done, obviously you wouldn't force somebody to take a photo, but it would be something for people to recognize them if you needed to. There's supporting information for the primary and all the company information that's required, plus a comments area. If you put their website in here, and you could open the website by clicking on the open button right here, and that would give you the ability to go ahead and read or look at things related to the company within that particular website for the company. If you have an address in this area here, and you click on location, it's going to give you a map through Google Maps to take you right to that location, so you'd have the ability to find that person if you had another location. And you can always go in here. If you had a contract job site, you could put the contract job site in here, and that would give you the location. And of course, within Google Maps, what you can do is pretty simple and straightforward. You can get directions. If you log in, let's drop this out of here. Pardon me. If you come over here and you want to see additional information that you can work with, you can always bring this over here. You can sign in. Once you sign in, you have access to your own maps and settings, help, and feedback if you need to give it to the map people, or you can do satellite mapping as opposed to street level. And then you have the ability when you're logged in to drag the little man out and put him over here so you can actually see what the building's going to look like at the street level within the application on the maps. Okay, the next one, you go back to the booking by tapping here and be able to see that. Now let's say, for example, that you had a situation where you could not find a field in this area and you needed to put information in there, but you wanted it to be able to be searchable. You can still search for a phrase or word in here using a find, but it's even better if you have a situation like this. This is called a UDF data. This is user-defined fields. And in user-defined fields, you take this information and tap here, and you're able to put in a title in this area, and then the data. What could you put in there? Maybe you want to put a secondary project manager's name or some particular person or whatever, and you have 3 wide here with this one being a little larger, and you can put in information for that particular thing. In this case, I type title, add title 2, and add title 3. And in here, they always have these gray prompts here to let you know what you're supposed to put in the field. And then if you want to go to the portal record for the UDFs, then you would go ahead and click on this arrow right here to go ahead and see that particular record. If you wanted to edit that record within the portal or do searches on portal records for UDF fields, you could do that. And these would be searchable across all records within the entire database. So for example, if you had something in here that might be related to individual companies that you had added, and this is an infinite number of fields you can put in here, maybe you have something in here for, oh, I don't know, maybe their particular expertise. Maybe they have something that is important to your company to know that they can do, and you title a field and put it in there. Every company that has that same attribute would be brought up, for example. And of course, if you have vendors in here and they're important to you as far as primary contacts and stuff, you can have some of their product line information within that screen area. Let's go ahead and take one last look at this record. And what I want to point out here, each customer that is in the screen has an ID. In this particular case, this is customer ID number 1. If you come down here, you'll see that this is the record for record ID number 1. If I wanted to go to another record within somebody within the screen and I know either the ID or the person's name, all you have to do is tap and it brings up that record. You can tap on the icon or the actual name, and now you'll see that number 4 is displayed up here. So, and also the name of the individual changes up here in the upper left-hand corner, so you can see the person that you're actually reading in here very quickly as you go through the record to verify it. So obviously you can see I can go all the way through the different records. And now let's go ahead and close out on this one. If you have questions on this screen or you need assistance, you can contact us through the developer support by clicking down here on this button. It'll take you to the developer's website. Now be aware, when this opens within the iPad on this particular site, it's a little slow to open, so don't think that it's not opening. It may take 15 to 30 seconds to open up. Okay, thank you. If you have questions, go ahead and contact us through the developer support.